We're going to be talking to Peter Muller at PRT Consulting Incorporated. Peter's going to tell us a little bit about his company himself, what the company does, and some of the benefits of this company.
Hi Frank, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Peter?
Very well, thank you. This has been an exciting conference for us.
Have you been here before?
No, this is our first time.
And where are you located?
In Frentown, Colorado, which is just south of Denver.
Okay, and what does your company do? And tell me a little bit about how long you've been with the company.
Well, we've had the company for a little over 4 years now. We're a planning and engineering consultancy. And what we focus on is something called personal rapid transit, which is a form of automated transit. You could think of it as a driverless taxi system. You have these taxis that are waiting for you in stations that don't have any drivers. You go to the station, you select your destination, get in a vehicle, and it takes you directly to your destination.
And that as opposed to a monorail, what are the benefits of this?
Well, because these are very small vehicles, they're the size of an automobile or even a small automobile, they need very little in the way of infrastructure. So the guideway is very light. The guideway is about the size of a footbridge. The stations can be small or larger, depending on the demand at that station. So what happens is you need a lot less infrastructure than you do for a monorail, and at the same time you get a higher level of service. You don't have to wait 5 minutes for the train to come. The vehicle's right there waiting for you in the station most of the time.
And what type of venues would benefit from this more than others?
Well, probably initially the ones that benefit the most are the campus-type venues, like an airport, a university, a gambling strip like at Las Vegas. But ultimately, any place where people are moving around, shopping centers for sure, but also cities and even into the suburbs.
And what about cost effectiveness? What is the return of investment for companies that choose to go with this type of technology rather than some other conventional technology?
Well, conventional transit technology is just not cost effective at all. There's almost no transit system in this country that pays for its operating costs through the money that people pay to use it. PRT can almost always pay for its operating costs, and in some cases even some or maybe even all of its capital costs through the revenues. So it's much more cost effective than conventional transit.
And do you have any indication whether or not the current economic conditions have affected your business at all?
They haven't affected it at all. In fact, in some ways there's an uptick in interest because it is so economical. It's a better way of doing, for example, light rail. We just spoke to a city this afternoon that was very interested in this because they want light rail but they can't afford it.
And what about the green benefits? I mean, I know it sounds like it's very green, and what would you contribute towards that as far as what's green about your product?
Well, the primary aspect that's green is that it uses about 1/3 of the energy of other transit systems or automobiles, so it uses less energy to start off with. Secondly, it's electrically based, so there are no emissions on site, and the electricity comes from the grid. It depends on how that electricity is manufactured. There may be emissions elsewhere. So it reduces the amount of energy that's needed, and it reduces the dependence on foreign oil, and it has no on-site emissions. But the most important thing is that the level of service is so good that people will actually use it. People in this country don't use transit. Only about 3% use transit. All the studies that have been done show that lots of people will use personal rapid transit.
What's the main type of maintenance that would be attached to this?
The primary maintenance is the maintenance of the vehicles themselves, which is not much different than maintaining an automobile. The difference is that these vehicles have more redundancy than an automobile. We do not want them breaking down on the guideway, so they monitor their own health and they're maintained to a very high standard.
And where did this originate?
It originated in this country about 50 years ago. The concept came about, and there was a system built in Morgantown, West Virginia 35 years ago that has now been running for 35 years. It was a disaster when it was built because it overran the budget, it overran the schedule, and it was a political embarrassment. But once they figured out the bugs, it has since run wonderfully. It has done 160 million injury-free passenger miles, which is about 100 times better than conventional transit.
That sounds pretty incredible. Now, have you been to this convention before?
No, this is the first time.
And what's your impression of the GreenZone?
It's smaller than I expected. There are some companies in here that I kind of wonder what the real green aspect is, but to be honest, I haven't asked, and maybe they do have a green aspect. I expected the GreenZone to be a little more bigger with the emphasis on sustainability. I would have expected the GreenZone to be at the front of this exhibit hall, not towards the back.
That's a very good point. I've heard that argument from another exhibitor. But anyway, do you have a website that we could get a hold of you at, or a phone number or anything like that?
www.prtconsulting.com, and it's 303-532-1855.
And your home base is where again?
In Franktown, which is just south of Denver, Colorado.
Well, thank you, Peter. I enjoyed talking to you, and I wish your company the best. It sounds like a very good technology to me, and I'm sure we're going to see some of it in Vegas one of these days. And I wish you a real successful show, and hope to see you next year.
Good. Thanks, Frank.